What's up, everybody? Tyson Roush. Let's talk Jets. The 2021 season has come and gone. A lot of highs, a lot of lows, some in between. But as always, it's a roller coaster ride where we head into the offseason where it's always a Jets ritual. It's like the most important offseason ever. I think in this case, it's probably true when you have two top 10 picks, $60 million. And I mean, you have a litany of assets to prove this team where it's a young team on the rise, where a very good offseason this team could take a significant step forward, and that should be the expectation. But a lot of people keep asking, like, what's your evaluation of this season? And to me, it's kind of went as expected. I mean, we lowered our expectations going into the season, and we all said the same thing. Rookie head coach, rookie coordinator, rookie quarterback. So many people are learning on the fly that you knew it was going to be ugly early. There was going to be a lot of growing pains and learning curves and everything else. You throw in the injury to Carl Lawson, you throw in the injury to Mekhi Becton, and this team was going to scramble. And also the unfortunate passing of Greg Knapp, too. May he rest in peace. So, this team faced a tremendous amount of adversity with a lot of people doing their job for the first time. Quarterback coach was a first-time guy in Calabrese. I mean, their heads had to be swimming for the first quarter of the season. So you look at how they started. There were some rough moments against the Patriots. But as the season progressed, slowly but surely you saw progress. Now, it may not be what we wanted to see. I mean, for a period there, I'll start with the quarterback. A period there, I was like, this first season is going to be like a redshirt year for him because he was playing so poorly and he looked lost, like he wasn't ready to start. Then he ended the season, 5 games, no interceptions. And you saw a lot of positive things. So it's like, as fans, I think we were so excited to see Zach Wilson take the field. We were so excited to replace Sam Darnold that our expectations were through the roof. The next Mahomes, the next Rodgers. It didn't happen instantly, and we were disappointed and frustrated. Furthermore, he was playing poorly, but you're like, wait, not only is he not Aaron Rodgers, he's also not Sam Darnold. He was worse. But, as it all played out, Saleh kept saying, trust the process. We even made shirts for it. But it all slowly but surely got better. They also learned, Mike LaFleur went from the field to the booth. Significant difference there. That was a major change. So the quarterback throughout the season got better. Did you want to see more? Of course, it didn't happen. But I think we saw enough to be encouraged that he was number 2 pick overall. And we saw glimmers of just excellent arm talent, mobility, intelligence. He's tough as hell. I mean, you saw it yesterday. He probably get hit 20 times. And I think the kid's going to be all right. He's got a great work ethic. He's got a great mindset. He stays out of trouble. I think he'll be fine. I think he's definitely a bright spot as we look forward. And you have to feel somewhat good about him. The running back position there, I mean, you've got to be thrilled with Michael Carter. Again, he had some rough spots. He got hurt. But, as the offense progressed, he came along and took off, and it was great. Tevin Coleman, a guy that most of us discounted, he stepped up and did really good things. I wouldn't mind bringing him back. And then Austin Walter, a guy out of nowhere, a guy none of us even talked about, came off explosive, physical, showed some good things. So the running back position, you feel encouraged. Now, LaMichael Pirine, probably not going to come back. Ty Johnson, all the drop passes, very inconsistent, probably replaceable. Then you go to wide receiver position. Now, this was a position that we thought was an area of strength because they had so much talent there. Corey Davis, obviously the marquee signing, quite disappointing with the drops, kind of inconsistent. Early on, he was Zach Wilson's safety valve, but for the money he paid and his expectations, I think he didn't live up to it. Unfortunately, he got hurt. I think we are all going to expect and demand big things out of him next year. Elijah Moore, got hurt early on. Then all of a sudden, he wasn't really doing much. Then all of a sudden, the light turned on, and he started taking off, and he became the game-breaking talent that we saw early on in training camp. Which you got to be excited about him because he could play inside, he could play outside, very versatile. The old Braxton Berrios came out of nowhere. Just the Jets wide receiver group, they had depth which they needed because they all started getting hurt. So Braxton Berrios came out of nowhere. Now, will they re-sign him or not? I think they probably will. Versatile player. I guess you had some downside too, where Jamison Crowder, they brought him back at a lesser deal. He took a salary reduction. I wish they would have traded him at the trade deadline because he's not going to come back. Keelan Cole was a disappointment because he just kept dropping the ball. Denzel Mims, a complete lost cause, which was shocking. For a while, we blamed that on the coaching staff, but apparently it looks like it's just his work ethic. He's either not picking up the offense or doesn't have the wherewithal to make it on this team. So, and then you have guys like Jeff Smith and everybody else. But I mean, if you look going forward, it's going to be Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, probably Braxton Berrios, and then you got to add somebody. I mean, if you draft a guy, if you go out and get a free agent, whatever it is, you got to give Zach Wilson as many pieces as possible. You go to tight end position where, their marquee signing was Tyler Kroft. They traded away Chris Herndon. And I think the Jets, if anything, completely miscalculated this position because Wesco didn't do much. Ryan Griffin wasn't all that great. I mean, they really needed a stud there. And Kroft got banged up. And it was an enormous hole for most of the season. So I think, if you want to criticize Joe Douglas, you probably could there. And then the offensive line. You lose Becton, you're like, how are they going to handle this? Who's going to step up? And George Fant was amazing. He played well beyond anything we thought he was going to do. And you got to remember when the Jets first signed him, we all mocked it. Like, oh, he's a glorified basketball player. He's a jumbo tight end. We kind of mocked the signing. And he ended up being a savior for this team. So he solidified left tackle. Vera Tucker, a very good year at left guard. And then you have, Connor McGovern, who I was not a fan of, progressed throughout the season, became like a stalwart there to the point where you're worried about what he was going to do. Then he gets banged up, and Dan Feeney stepped in. Now, they didn't play well yesterday, but Dan Feeney played admirably. And Connor McGovern, unfortunately, got hurt. It'll be interesting to see the Jets do at the center position there because you want to have an anchor in front of Zach Wilson that he can count on week in and week out. The Jets started the season Greg Van Roten, which was a calculated mistake. I mean, that was just a mistake. Called what it was. I think they were maybe counting on maybe Cameron Clark to play there or somebody else, but he was not very good. Fortunately enough, they got LDT from Kansas City, who filled in, kind of solidified things. And then you had Morgan Moses at right tackle, who was pretty solid all year long. And the Jets got lucky with him. They signed him late in the preseason, actually. So the offensive line got better as the season played out. And I think that's also showing how the coaching staff kind of figured out what their talent was, figured out the scheme. And that was Mike LaFleur, too. It's like you had so many new parts. You had new offensive linemen, new quarterback. You had all these moving parts. You had to make them all gel. And then you had to get them on all the same page. And then you had to face all different defenses. And then throughout the season, they got better, especially the offensive line, especially after injuries. When George Fant went down, you had Adoga step up, McDermott stepped up. So they had some depth, which was good. They got to keep improving it. The offensive line needs to be much better, much more stout, and see where you go. But I think all in all, you saw what this offense could be. A lot of creativity, a lot of motion. And if you add the vital playmakers, I think they're going to be okay. I think the most encouraging thing is the offense returned to NFL standards. For the last 3 or 4 years, we felt like we were like in the dark ages, man. We're like, I was jealous of every other team in the NFL, but now our offense is back like everybody else, and at times probably more creative than other teams. So you add in year 2 of Zach Wilson with more explosive playmakers, Elijah Moore with a good offseason, and this could be a lot of fun to watch. Defensively, for the most part, it was disappointing because everybody kept telling me how. I'll say. I thought the defensive line would be the strength of this team. It would be dominant, and then everything else would be kind of sketchy. Carl Lawson goes down, which was ridiculous. Not ridiculous, unfortunate, because he was probably having one of the best training camps I've ever seen. I've been probably at the training camp for 15 years, and Carl Lawson was so damn explosive. And it was so exciting to see what he can do. He goes down, and you're like, all right, where's your pass rush going to come from? They wanted to count on Bryce Huff. He gets banged up, and they really didn't have anybody consistent. John Franklin Myers starts off hot. They give him a new contract. He doesn't really get the pressure that he needs. And then the run defense was some of the worst we've ever seen. You have guys that are highly touted in rankings, Quinnen Williams, Fatukasi, Kyle Phillips, all these guys everybody likes, and they didn't play well consistently. Now, that could have been rotations, that could have been learning the scheme, but I don't understand how week in and week out they get blown off the ball and give up chunk yards in the running game. So linebackers, C.J. Mosley gave his heart and soul to this team. A lot of people wondered what he's going to bring to the table. Can he stay healthy? What would be his skill set when he lost 20 pounds? And he did everything that was asked of him, if not more. It's unfortunate he didn't have better players around him at the linebacker group. Jared Davis was a disappointment as a free agent. They get Quincy Williams, who was very good. He definitely came on as a young player that you can try to hope you groom and get better in another year in the system. But other than that, the injuries decimated the linebacker group. Blake Cashman brought nothing to the table. So that's an area you definitely got to upgrade. And then you go to the corners where it was a pleasant surprise, where all of these young guys, which we thought was going to be like the scary part of this team, competed week in and week out, and you got a lot of encouraging efforts. Eccles, Michael Carter, Bryce Hall, they were doing an excellent job. Even Javelin Guidry, they competed. They did what was asked, and a lot of times it wasn't easy when you have no pass rush. So that was definitely an encouraging sign. You go to safety position, Marcus May and LaMarcus Joyner were your starters, and both got knocked out for the year. And the safety position was kind of in flux for most of the time. Ashton Davis didn't really show me much. Elijah Riley did the best he could. And you had all these different guys. Pinnock showed some things. But I think, that's just, the defense has to get overhauled. I mean, you got to get a lot more talent. You need some, I don't know if you want to draft the safety or sign a veteran guy to get back there, but you need some, a stabilizing factor back there because, they just don't, they take so many bad angles and so many big explosive plays that just can't happen. But overall, I think I was more encouraged about the offense than the defense, especially when you consider Robert Saleh is a defensive-minded coach. He always kept saying it wasn't the scheme, it was the players. Then if you have all these high-priced players, then where's it going wrong? So I think what they're going to do is this year was a true evaluation year on defense to say, we inherited all these guys. Are they a fit or are they not? You weed out some guys. You don't fire any coaches. Everybody comes back. You weed out some guys. And I think next year you have to see a much improved defense or then the coordinator start changing. You're going to have no choice. In terms of the coach, the head coach, we were all very critical of him early on. I mean, he looked like a zombie on the sidelines. He looked like he had no idea what he was doing. He was embarrassing himself in press conferences. And it was like you started becoming very concerned between Saleh not coming off very well like a zombie, Mike LaFleur's play calling, and Ulbricht's defense playing like garbage. You're like, did the Jets hire the right guys? And slowly but surely they started figuring it out, especially after some bad losses. I mean, the Jets were getting blown out. They had some really ugly losses. They kept the team together. And then slowly but surely you started seeing Saleh's personality come out. He became a little more fiery, he started getting after the refs, started getting after his team. You saw him leave the sideline, go to the bench, talk to his players. You saw him mature as a head coach. Time management got better. Game management got better. He started holding people accountable, which is something that we were begging for. When you had guys like Greg Van Roten playing awful, take him out. I think he was finding his way. He had a fine line between being a player's coach and a stern coach, like establishing his rules, establishing his culture, figuring out who he was as a head coach, figuring out who his team was. And towards the end of the season, you started seeing that. So it's been a tremendous, I think, learning experience for this team. I'm pretty impressed with Saleh. He's very well spoken. He seems very, he has a good feel for both sides of the football. He seems to have an excellent relationship with Joe Douglas, and that's the next guy. Joe Douglas had this rookie class this year was very good. The class before, not very good. The free agent class, in terms of getting the most bang for your buck, that definitely didn't happen when you look at the amount of money on IR. Now, is that his fault? Not his fault. I mean, Carl Lawson had an injury history, which was completely unfortunate. But a lot of the other moves, too. He doubled down with Greg Van Roten. That didn't work out. The Corey Davis signing is kind of scary. So he has got to do a better job of getting the most bang for his buck. The one thing about John Franklin Myers is that there's a notion that if you move him inside next to Quinnen and you have Carl Lawson on the outside, it'll be a much more explosive and physical defense. So that would warrant why you pay him that much money. That remains to be seen. But, I mean, Joe Douglas, like this year was a kind of like a wash year for everybody. Like we accepted losing. We expected losing. We expected mediocre play and poor play at times. We expect a lot of things. All those built-in excuses and the justification of losing is now gone. And now the stakes are higher for Joe Douglas as well. And he's got to be, he has a litany of resources to upgrade this team. If that means make trades, if that means, go out and make bold moves in free agency, make a big splash in the draft, whatever it is, no excuses now. No bargain basement shopping, no pinching pennies, no more Band-Aids at pivotal positions. Like, don't get cheap on the offensive line. Like, you gotta get aggressive now. Like, the honeymoon is over for Joe Douglas. Now, the expectations for Saleh, I saw some things today about Saleh, like this is a must-win season for him. I mean, one of my biggest problems with the Jets is there's never any kind of mandate to win. It's always like, well, just play better. Now, you win 4 games this year. The expectation should be 8 wins next year. Like, you got to make a run. We got to see competitive football week in and week out. You want to see meaningful games in December. You want to see a much higher level here. Now, I'm not saying there should be a playoff mandate, but we can't have well, we tried our best and we're a young team. The young team excuse was this year. Next year, you got to have a higher standard for everybody. Everybody returning next year, higher standard. So that falls on, Joe Douglas got to do his thing. Saleh's got to coach his players up. They got to do a lot of self-evaluation. Look at where any kind of deficiencies are in terms of like game management and improve as a whole. But as a fan, you've got to be excited, man. We've been through some really bad times. But if you look at just your young core going forward, where you have on offense Zach Wilson, Michael Carter, Elijah Moore, and Vera Tucker, that's exciting, man. Like our biggest thing was develop an offense and the defense will follow, because the NFL is a points league. Scoring points, it's all about the quarterback, the offense, and everything else. You got to build it up and score as many points as possible. Be explosive, be dynamic, be well-rounded. And we have some of those pieces now. You add in a good offseason, and it's going to be fun to watch this team. So to me, I guess my summary is it was a rough year at points, but towards the end, we could finally see the blueprint. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I think you got to be completely encouraged. The Jets are, they're a young team on the rise. I think they had the right decision makers in place with Douglas and Saleh. I like Zach Wilson. I think it's just we went through a rough part. I think we're gonna start enjoying things much more going forward. So long video, and sorry about that. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll keep adding more things as we go along, and have a good day.